Welcome back to Switch Top. The Switch library is packed, and picking the best games on it is genuinely hard. So, we did it anyway. These are the 25 best games on Nintendo Switch, ranked, explained, and worth every second of your time. Let's get into it. Xenoblade Chronicles X, Definitive Edition. Earth is gone. 2 alien races destroyed it in 2054, and a handful of survivors crash-landed on a massive alien world called Mira. You play as a member of Blade, the organization tasked with keeping humanity alive while exploring this completely unknown planet. The world of Mira is enormous. 5 distinct continents packed with towering wildlife, mysterious ruins, and landscapes that feel genuinely alien. Combat runs on an action RPG system where you queue up special moves called arts, manage a party of 4, and build toward bigger combos. The real game changer is the Skell, a giant robot you eventually earn the right to pilot. Skells let you fly, sprint across massive terrain, and take on enemies you couldn't touch on foot. The Definitive Edition adds a new Chapter 13 that expands the story, cleans up the UI, and brings the whole game to Switch with improved visuals.
Assault hammer! Blast them before they get out!
Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the first truly new 2D Mario game in over a decade, and it comes out swinging. You're still running, jumping, and stomping through side-scrolling levels, but Wonder Flowers completely change how each stage works, triggering transformations that turn Mario into an elephant, make the pipes come alive and chase you, flip gravity, or do something else you couldn't possibly predict. Every level feels like it has its own personality, and the game never repeats a trick twice. The badge system lets you equip passive abilities before each level, giving you ways to tailor the experience. Wall jumping, floating jumps, that kind of thing. You can also play with up to 4 players locally, and online multiplayer lets you see ghost versions of other players' runs happening alongside yours. It's colorful, inventive, and the kind of game that constantly surprises you, no matter how many Mario games you've already played. Metroid Dread is the game Metroid fans waited nearly 2 decades for a proper 2D follow-up to Metroid Fusion, and it delivered hard. You play as Samus Aran, stranded on a planet called ZDR after a mission goes wrong, immediately. The world is broken into interconnected zones that you explore and gradually open up as you acquire new abilities. Classic Metroidvania structure done at the highest level. What sets Dread apart is the Emmy robotic hunters that patrol specific areas and will kill you in one hit if they catch you. When an Emmy is active in your zone, the tension is unlike anything else in the genre. You have to read their patrol routes, move carefully, and time your one counterattack window perfectly. Outside of those zones, the combat is fast and satisfying, the boss fights are excellent, and the sense of becoming more powerful as you unlock each new ability feels genuinely earned. Astral Chain is a Platinum Games action title that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. You're a cop in a near-future city where interdimensional creatures called Chimera are tearing through the population. To fight back, you use a Legion, a chained creature you've captured and bonded with, and the combat runs on controlling both your character and your Legion simultaneously. The 2 characters are connected by a physical chain, and a lot of the combat and puzzle solving revolves around how you use that chain, wrapping enemies, holding them in place, coordinating dual attacks. You can switch between different Legion types mid-fight, each with their own abilities and roles. Outside of combat, there's investigation work, scanning crime scenes, questioning witnesses, running standard police duties in a world that feels genuinely alive. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening is a remake of the 1993 Game Boy Classic, rebuilt from scratch with a toy-like art style that makes the whole world look like it's sitting on a tabletop diorama. Link washes ashore on Koholint Island after a shipwreck, and to leave, he has to wake the Windfish, a legendary creature sleeping at the island's heart. The dungeon design is tight and clever, using a small set of tools in endlessly inventive ways, and the island has this slightly dreamy, melancholy atmosphere underneath its charm. A chamber dungeon feature lets you rearrange rooms from completed dungeons and build your own layouts, which extends the game nicely. It's shorter than most Zelda games, but every hour of it is well crafted. If you never played the original or bounced off its Game Boy presentation, this remake is the definitive way to experience what many consider one of the best Zelda stories ever told. Kirby's first full 3D adventure is exactly as delightful as you'd want it to be. Kirby and a bunch of Waddle Dees get sucked through a vortex into a post-apocalyptic world, crumbling shopping malls, overgrown amusement parks, icy highways, all reclaimed by nature and wildlife. You float, inhale enemies, and copy their abilities to work through levels, which is classic Kirby, but the 3D space opens up the exploration significantly. The real highlight is mouthful mode. Kirby inhaling things too big to swallow, stretching around a car and driving it, a vending machine to shoot cans, a traffic cone to charge through obstacles. It's absurd and joyful. 2-player co-op is available throughout. The game is accessible enough that anyone can finish it, but optional extra challenges and a tough final boss stretch add real depth for players who want it. Luigi's Mansion 3. Luigi gets invited to what seems like a dream vacation at a luxury hotel, which immediately turns into a nightmare when it's revealed the hotel is haunted and Mario and friends have been captured. Armed with his Poltergust G00 vacuum, Luigi works floor by floor, hunting ghosts and solving environmental puzzles to rescue everyone. Each floor of the hotel has its own theme: a movie studio, an Egyptian pyramid, a pirate ship, and each one has its own boss ghost with a unique weakness. The combat involves flashing ghosts to stun them, then vacuuming them up and slamming them around, which stays satisfying throughout. Gooigi, a slime copy of Luigi you can deploy, is used for puzzles where you need 2 characters in different places simultaneously. The co-op mode lets a second player control Gooigi, which works really well for couch co-op. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is widely considered the best Paper Mario game ever made. And after 20 years, Nintendo finally brought it to Switch with a full visual overhaul, new music arrangements, and quality of life improvements. Mario chases a map given to Princess Peach into the town of Rogueport, a grimy port city with actual personality, and from there gets pulled into a treasure hunt involving crystal stars and a massive sealed door. The turn-based battle system uses timed button presses for attack and defense, a crowd mechanic that reacts to how well you perform, and a badge system for building Mario's abilities. The writing is the real star. It's genuinely funny, full of self-aware humor, and has a supporting cast of partners who each have their own story arcs. It's deeper and darker than most Mario games dare to be. Super Mario Party Jamboree is the biggest Mario Party game ever made. 22 boards, over 110 minigames, and more modes than any previous entry in the series. The core formula is the same. Roll dice, move around a board, collect stars, play minigames between turns, try to ruin your friends' plans. But Jamboree goes bigger in every direction. The boards are more elaborate, the rhythm of play feels tighter, and the addition of Koopathon, a 20-player online minigame event, is a genuinely new and fun idea. There's also a Toad Shop minigame mode, a rhythm party mode, and a buddy system that gives each character unique dice blocks to experiment with. It runs great in handheld and TV mode, and it's the kind of game that fills a room with noise immediately. If you play Mario Party occasionally, this is the one to own. If you haven't touched the series in years, this is a great reason to come back. Octopath Traveler II takes everything the first game did and builds a much richer, more connected world around it. You choose from 8 travelers: a merchant, an apothecary, a hunter, a scholar, a thief, a warrior, a dancer, a cleric, each with their own complete story arc and their own starting point in the world. The combat is a turn-based system built around a break mechanic. Every enemy has weaknesses to specific weapons and spells, and hitting them rotates their defense, leaving them vulnerable to massive damage. The boost system lets you store points to amplify your actions dramatically at key moments. Each traveler also has daytime and nighttime path actions, ways to interact with the world's NPCs by challenging them, hiring them, stealing from them, or learning their skills. The visual style mixes pixel sprites with 3D lighting beautifully, and unlike the first game, the 8 stories actually converge in a satisfying way by the end.
Here I come. How's this?
Animal Crossing New Horizons handed you a deserted island and gave you the freedom to turn it into whatever you wanted, at whatever pace you felt like. You start with a tent, some tools, and a couple of animal neighbors, and from there you plant flowers, catch fish and bugs, dig up fossils, build bridges and ramps, terraform the land, and slowly furnish a life that's entirely your own. There's no goal, no fail state, no urgency time, in the game runs on a real-time clock, so mornings feel like mornings, and seasons change alongside the actual calendar. The furniture and decoration system is enormous, and the island editing tools let you reshape the terrain completely. New Horizons came out at the exact moment the world needed it most, but beyond that context, it's a genuinely wonderful game, one of the best relaxation experiences Nintendo has ever made, and one that kept millions of people logging in daily for years. Xenoblade Chronicles II is set in a world where humanity lives on the backs of massive creatures called Titans that drift across an endless sea of clouds. You play as Rex, a salvager who ends up bonded to Pyra, a legendary blade whose power is sought by everyone. Blades are weapon entities that bond with humans called drivers, and your party is built from a roster of blades, each with their own combat role, personality, and affinity system to develop. The combat is a real-time system where auto attacks charge your arts charge your specials, and specials chain into devastating blade combos when the team coordinates them right. It's one of the more involved combat systems in any JRPG, and once it clicks, it's deeply satisfying. The story is emotional and operatic. It has big anime energy and earns it. The Twina DLC adds a prequel storyline that's excellent, hundreds of hours of content, easily one of the best JRPGs on Switch.
Think you could keep up, Laura? Snow Blast!
The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. For the first time in the franchise's history, Zelda is the main character, not a supporting figure, not a flashback, but the protagonist doing the actual hero work. When Link gets pulled into a rift, it falls to Zelda to explore Hyrule and rescue him. The key mechanic is the Tri-Rod, which lets Zelda create Echoes copies of enemies and objects she's encountered, and use them to solve puzzles and fight. You can stack beds to climb, summon enemies to fight for you, build water blocks to flood areas, and layer echoes in creative combinations. It's a top-down Zelda game in the style of Link's Awakening, and the puzzle design is built specifically around the freedom the ecosystem gives you. Most problems have multiple solutions, so player creativity is genuinely rewarded. It's a smart, charming game with a satisfying story that gives Zelda a real personality and makes her a genuinely compelling lead. Pikmin 4 is the most approachable, feature-complete entry in the series, and absolutely the best starting point for newcomers. You're a rescue mission operative who crashes while looking for Captain Olimar, and now you're also stranded, befriending creatures called Pikmin to help you survive and explore. Each Pikmin type has different abilities. Red ones fight, yellow ones can be thrown high and conduct electricity, blue ones work in water, ice ones freeze enemies and terrain, and you direct them as a group to carry objects, battle creatures, and solve environmental puzzles against a time limit, each in-game day. Ochi, a dog companion, changes the feel of exploration significantly. He can carry Pikmin, break obstacles, and swim. There are also night missions with a different survival structure. The campaign is generous in length. The Dandori battles add a competitive challenge mode, and the side-scrolling Olimar missions give the game even more variety. Unicorn Overlord is a tactical RPG about liberating a continent from an empire, and it executes that premise with more care and craft than most games in the genre manage. You're Elaine, a young prince building an army to reclaim his kingdom from the corrupt General Valmor, who overthrew it. The strategy layer involves moving units across a world map, freeing towns, completing skirmishes, and managing resources. The battle system is auto-resolved based on tactics you set beforehand. You build combat formations and define each unit's behavior, then watch the strategy play out and adjust after. The depth comes from understanding unit synergies, counters, and formation positioning. The game has over 60 recruitable characters with individual stories and relationships, and the world feels populated and real. The pixel art is gorgeous, and the soundtrack is exceptional.
Strike them!
Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is the game that established Monolith Soft as one of the most ambitious studios in the world, and the Definitive Edition on Switch is the perfect version of it. You're Shulk, a young man living on the Bionis, a colossal creature so large that civilizations have grown on its body. After a devastating attack by the Mechon, Shulk discovers he can wield the Monado, a legendary sword with the ability to see glimpses of the future, and sets off on a journey across the Bionis to find answers. The world is staggering in scale, with sprawling fields, glowing forests, and sea-covered legs that take hours to fully explore. Combat is real-time, with positional tactics, party buffs, and chain attacks. The story starts as revenge and becomes something far bigger and more philosophical. The Definitive Edition adds a complete epilogue chapter called Future Connected. Fire Emblem Three Houses splits its story into 4 distinct paths, depending on which of the 3 schoolhouses you join at the start: Golden Deer, Black Eagles, or Blue Lions, plus a hidden 4th route. You're Byleth, a new professor at the Officers' Academy at Garreg Mach Monastery, teaching a class of students who are essentially the future leaders of 3 rival nations. Between battles, you spend time at the monastery, managing your weak training students, having meals, exploring, building relationships. The turn-based strategy combat on a grid is the series standard, but the monastery structure means you actually care about the students you're commanding into battle. The time skip at the midpoint of each route is genuinely shocking, and the way the same characters end up on different sides depending on which path you chose makes replaying all 4 routes feel completely different. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is the rare Nintendo game that's genuinely better with friends. 4-player, simultaneous co-op through beautifully designed levels where the game has to stretch to accommodate 4 characters, each going after their own goals. The catsuit transforms everyone into clawed climbers who can scramble up walls and pounce on enemies, and the level design constantly plays with that mobility in clever ways. The Switch version adds Bowser's Fury, a standalone open-world experience where Bowser has gone completely feral and massive, and you and Bowser Jr. have to work together to stop him. Giga Cat Mario is the counter, a giant powered-up form, triggered by collecting cat shines. Bowser's Fury is shorter than a full game, but feels like a confident preview of what 3D Mario could explore next. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom takes everything Breath of the Wild built and adds a construction system on top of it that changes how you think about every single problem in the game. Ultra Hand lets you grab and connect objects to build anything from a raft to a fully weaponized vehicle. Fuse lets you combine weapons and shields with objects to create tools you'd never expect. Ascend lets you phase upward through ceilings. Recall rewinds an object's movement through time. These 4 abilities interact with each other and with the open world in ways that feel genuinely limitless. The Sky Islands add a vertical exploration layer on top of Hyrule, and the Depths, a vast underground mirror of the overworld, shrouded in darkness, add a 3rd dimension to the map. The story is more substantial than its predecessor, told through memories and present-day quests that build toward a climax that actually lands. Metroid Prime came out in 2002, and it still holds up. The remastered version just makes that easier to see. Samus Aran boards a derelict space pirate research station orbiting the planet Talon 4, and uncovers a story told entirely through environmental scanning rather than cutscenes. The first-person perspective puts you inside Samus's helmet, and the world of Talon 4 is built from interconnected biomes: jungle ruins, volcanic caverns, a crashed frigate, an icy cave network that you explore with new abilities acquired along the way. Scanning objects and enemies builds out a lore database that rewards curious players with a rich backstory. Boss fights test your understanding of the combat toolkit in focused, memorable encounters. The remastered version overhauls the visuals completely. It genuinely looks like a modern game, and adds dual-stick controls alongside the original control options. Dragon Quest XI's is the definitive version of what many consider the best Dragon Quest game in decades, and it earns every hour of its runtime. You play as the Luminary, a young man from a small village who discovers he carries the legendary power of the Luminary of Legend and immediately gets branded a demon by the king. What follows is a classic JRPG journey across a rich world filled with colorful towns, memorable characters, and turn-based combat that's been refined over 4 decades of Dragon Quest design. Each party member has a fully developed story, and the bond between them drives the narrative through its second and third acts, which escalate into territory far darker and more emotional than the cheerful start suggests. The S version adds full orchestral music, a 16-bit retro mode for the whole game, Japanese voice acting, and additional character stories. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is Monolith Soft's most emotionally ambitious game, set in a world where 2 nations, Kevez and Agnes, have been at war forever, and soldiers only live for 10 years before their life force is harvested. 6 soldiers from opposing sides form an unlikely party and set out to understand why this world exists and who is really in control of it. The story tackles life, death, meaning, and what it means to actually live, and it lands in a way that very few games manage. The combat system builds on both previous games: 6 characters with class roles, interlocking arts, chain attacks that require team coordination, and a deep class swap system that lets you customize each character's role using skills from classes they've leveled. The world is massive, full of fascinating colonies, each with their own stories. The Future Redeemed DLC adds a direct connection to the broader Xenoblade timeline and has some of the best story content in the series.
Come here! I got something for you! You're a lifesaver.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best version of the best Mario Kart ever made. And after years of Booster Course DLC bringing the track count to 96, it's also the most content-rich racing game on the platform. The driving feels fantastic, drifting, hopping, using slipstreams, and the item system walks the line between punishing and fair better than any other entry. Battle mode was rebuilt from scratch for Deluxe and added proper arenas and multiple game modes that were missing from the Wii U original, up to 4 players locally or 12 online. The Booster Course Pass added courses from across Mario Kart history, including tracks from the Wii, DS, Tour, and 3 DS entries, all remastered. It's the kind of game that literally everyone can play. There's an assist mode for young kids, and the skill ceiling is high enough that experienced players can push far beyond it. Super Mario Odyssey is a pure celebration of what 3D platforming can be. Mario and a living hat named Cappy travel through a series of large, themed kingdoms to rescue Princess Peach from Bowser's wedding plans. The twist is, Cappy throw him at almost any enemy or object, and Mario possesses it, playing as a Goomba, a Hammer Bro, a tank, a dinosaur, a frog, and dozens more. Each kingdom has its own set of power moons to collect, and the density of things to find and do in each one is remarkable. Secrets hidden in walls, underground areas, minigames tucked into corners, hidden moons that reward players who explore every surface. The movement is expressive and deep. Mario can dive, roll, wall jump, long jump off Cappy throws, and chain tricks in ways that reward skilled play. The new Donk City section alone is one of the most memorable moments in Nintendo history. Breath of the Wild is the game that changed what open-world games are allowed to be. Link wakes up with no memory, in a Hyrule that's been devastated by Calamity Ganon, and the entire world is yours to approach however you want from the opening moments. Every mechanic is a tool that interacts with every other mechanic. Metal objects conduct lightning. Fire creates updrafts. Water freezes. Enemies can be disarmed, and their weapons used against them. The physics engine is so deeply integrated that players are still finding new ways to combine mechanics years after launch. Shrines replace traditional dungeons as compact puzzle rooms scattered across the world, each one teaching and testing a specific mechanic. The Divine Beasts are large-scale dungeons that reward exploration and creative problem-solving. The story is told in reverse through recovered memories, which makes piecing it together feel personal. That's the top 25 Switch games as we see them. Some of these you've probably already played. Some might be new to you. Either way, the Switch library earned its reputation, and these games are the reason why.